Hey Wild Ducks. Welcome to our technology podcast. It's my pleasure to introduce the avatar of your host, Jerry Cuomo.
Thank you, RJ. Welcome folks to the Wild Ducks podcast. Our new series brings a personal and behind-the-scenes touch to trending technology topics, including AI, cybersecurity, and web technologies. Inspired by Thomas J. Watson Jr.'s Wild Ducks analogy, which describes innovators who challenge conventional thinking, the podcast features conversations with real subject matter experts and creatively fabricated guests using technology, all wild ducks in their own right. And today, to kick off the series, we have a wild duck who is a legend at IBM and who has inspired Jerry and I for quite some time. His name is Irving Wladowski-Berger. Irving is a research affiliate at MIT Sloan, retired IBM executive, advisor on digital strategy, adjunct professor, blog writer, and fellow of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences. He holds a PhD in physics from the University of Chicago. As I said, Irving is a true wild duck, defying convention at IBM by spearheading the Internet division and driving the company's transition to open systems with Linux. Oh, and Jerry is proud to call him a friend.
And with that, I'd like to invite my friend Irving to the podcast. Welcome, Irving.
Jerry, it's a pleasure to be here with you, as always.
Oh, I'm so glad to have you here. So we're talking about AI and the Internet. So let's start off maybe with a historic perspective. And
Sure.
I mean, if I can be so bold, who better than you and I to take a perspective? We've been around the block a few times. So
We have been around the block.
yeah. So looking back, the Internet revolutionized communication and information access. I think we
Right.
both agree on that. So let's discuss what are the most significant similarities and
Yeah.
some differences that we should discuss, like reflecting back on the early days of the Internet and then contrasting it to current phases of AI development. So let's start there, Irving.
Yeah, can we start with the differences first?
Sure.
Because with the internet, and let's pick it up not when the DARPA project started in 1969, but when it started becoming more a commercial
Right.
technology.
Yeah.
And let's say by the late 1980s, the internet was already in pretty good shape, and it was widely used by the research community,
That's right.
the supercomputing centers, and essentially universities, technical communities, and so on. And it was really a standardized way. Remember, in those days, as we know well, the computer technology from vendors like IBM and Hewlett-Packard and so on was proprietary.
Right.
And the internet was a standardized way of doing communications and email in the world of IT. But it was definitely the world of IT.
Right.
And then the internet started moving over into the commercial world. First of all, until 1989, commercial institutions were not allowed to use the internet because it was still being, I don't know if it was being paid for, but the federal government was still very involved. And starting in 1989, commercial institutions started being able to use it, and that, of course, took off in the 90s, and the rest is history.
That's right.
And then let me, the World Wide Web is so integrated with the internet.
That's right.
That, and it started showing up, I would say, around 89 as well, with Tim Berners-Lee and CERN, and it was used for high-energy physicists to be able to share information.
That's right.
And it shared a lot of similarities with the internet in that it started from the research community, it was based on open standards, and this is something very important for things you and I care so much about, along with the standards of the internet and the web came open source implementations of the standards. So everybody could use them instead of having to implement them.
I agree. That's the 1-2 punch. It's having the standards and then having convenient open code that implements them.
And the internet continued to advance in the 90s, And again, as I said earlier, it absolutely revolutionized IT, and it transformed the information technology industry from one based primarily on proprietary technologies, proprietary platforms, and so on, to much more of a world of standards. I mean, let's then look at AI. AI started in the 1950s by a bunch of, early computer scientists in universities, mostly MIT, I think, that, wanted, computers were beginning to show up, and they said, gee, wouldn't it be nice to develop applications that could replicate human intelligence? 1956 or 57, they said that. Now, needless to say, that wasn't successful.
Right.
But for the next, I would say, in the 60s, in the 70s, and into the early 80s, AI was one of the most exciting areas in computer sciences.
That's right.
MIT had a lot of activities. Stanford University had a lot of activities. A number of
I studied it in Syracuse University about that time as well.
Yeah, so it really was one of the most exciting areas. But and there were some very nice projects that show some demonstration. I think early on, I forget who developed a program, an AI application that could beat a human in checkers.
That's right. Checkers before chess.
Checkers before chess, exactly. And, and then because of all the disappointment and all the hype in the 60s and 70s, then an AI winter, as it's called, came along that almost killed the field. And what happened is that the ambition on light, this is the biggest difference between the internet and AI in those days, and probably still to this day. The internet was based on achievable things. It was based on, let's do networks, let's do information access. The best and brightest in the research community worked on it for 20 years. Remember, from 1969 to the late 80s, it was developed and it was tested. The supercomputing community and so on were using it. And the objectives were very realistic from a technology and engineering point of view.
That's right.
AI was not. They were absolutely unrealistic. And I think the answer is the word intelligence.
That's picking on something pretty profound.
In the 1950s meeting, there was a discussion, why we shouldn't call this artificial intelligence. Why don't we call this discipline highly complex systems?
Okay. I'm not sure if that was any better, but go ahead.
Well, but at least there was less hype to highly complex.
That's right. Yeah, they weren't picking a fight with human intelligence.
Yeah, and and people said, well, but that's not as sexy a term as artificial intelligence. Now, and then, as we know well, because we were also involved in this thing, in the 1990s, AI was reinvented based on analyzing huge amounts of data with highly sophisticated algorithms and increasingly powerful computer systems. And it all started in the 90s. You and I remember well Big Blue, IBM. And they used as the supercomputer, one of the parallel supercomputers that when I was the general manager of our supercomputing division, we had developed. It was called the SP2 for
That's right. I remember
parallel supercomputer, and did superb. And then the internet was taking off, and this is very important, generating gigantic amounts of digital data. Why is digital data so important? Because without data, you don't have AI. Data is
That's right.
the energy powering AI.
It is the food that AI feeds on.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Food AI feeds on. And in the 2000s, we got big data and we got the advanced analytics and we got the data sciences, and then we got machine learning, we got multi-level deep computing, deep learning, and of course, a few years ago, we got generative AI. But their birth was very different. The internet had a far more difficult birth because it had to overcome a lot of hype and a lot of false starts, whereas the internet didn't. The internet really was very, very solid from the beginning. So those are the differences. Where are they similar? Well, they are definitely historically transformative technologies. Yes. And that's not a term I'm using lightly. That's a term, I learned that term from Carlota Perez. I don't know if you know, who analyzed historically transformative technologies from the beginning of the Industrial Revolution, starting with steam power, then came, railroads, then electricity, steel, cars, airplanes, radio and TV, and on and on and on and on. And we have to agree, each one of those technologies was incredibly transformative.
Absolutely.
The internet has been. Nobody is going to question us. And AI is on its way to being. I think to call AI as being there already, it would be as if you have a kid who is very good at baseball and you say, oh my God, that's the next Babe Ruth or the next George, if you want to.
That's right.
It. Or very good at soccer and you say, oh, there goes Lionel Messi in a few years. So it takes a while for a kid who is really good at something to really make it big. And AI, we're still in the early days of its present generation. But there is no question in my mind that it is going to be the defining technology of the next 30, 40 years. There is no question in my mind.
And Irving, I first of all, I tend to agree with that. But is there anything specific that you've seen? And I know what your connections to certain industry fields, but do you see it making a mark in one area versus the other that kind of gives it that push over the edge?
In fact, I just finished reading and writing, reading a report and writing about it by PwC, and it called AI the industrial revolution of knowledge. So the classic industrial revolution was the industrial revolution of physical things, and it revolutionized with steam power and so on. It revolutionized the physical world, gave us the ability to handle things with a lot more power than humans had. It gave us the ability to move much faster than we could with cars. It gave us the ability to fly with airplanes. But that's all the physical world, the world of physical engineering.
Right.
AI is really all about knowledge, of helping us deal with gigantic amounts of information, gigantic amounts of data that we can analyze. It helps us make far better predictions, and that helps us make far better decisions. So they are complementary revolutions. And we can all agree the Industrial Revolution, starting in the late decades of the 19th century, transformed the world, the whole world.
Yeah, humanity.
And I feel that's starting to happen with AI, with a lot more in the world of knowledge. Now you could ask me, and I don't think you will, well, Irving, where does knowledge apply? Well, there is no discipline.
Right.
There is no industry that cannot do things a hell of a lot better if it has a way of dealing with knowledge, a way of making better decisions.
Yeah.
What AI has to keep fighting, this is very important, which the internet never had to fight, is the fact that it's intelligence. Because then people show up and they say, well, okay, but how about artificial general intelligence when AI is more intelligent than a human? Remember, nobody's asking the internet, what do you do when the internet is better than a human? Because that would be a silly question.
That's right.
But people ask it of AI, and that is a problem, I believe. And then along with that question comes, but Irving, isn't AI an existential threat to humanity? Because once it becomes more intelligent than a human, it will want to take over the world. And what I would say is, listen, Jerry and I are technologists, we're engineers, we are scientists. Let us deal with that. We are not Steven Spielberg. We are not science fiction movie writers. Leave that to other people.
All right, Irving. I think we've taken on the first big question, and it was a big one: the comparing and contrasting internet and AI. So we're going to take a break, and then we're going to come back with our next part of this two-part series, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the social, the economic. We're going to talk about impact on business, rules and regulations for AI, and then maybe I'll ask you to take out your crystal ball and do some predictions of your own of where this might go.
Sure. That would be great. Look forward to it.
Okay, that's a wrap on part 1 of this two-part kickoff, called Internet versus AI. Speaking about AI, did you hear Jerry has a new book out called Think Artificial Intelligence? Order your copy today. Jerry is donating royalties to the St. Jude Children's Research Hospital. Buying is donating. I'd like to thank Irving, and we'd also like to thank you all for watching. On behalf of Jerry Cuomo, IBM Fellow, and Wild Duck, see you again soon. Bye.